Now, here in the UK, Andy Burnham says he is still deciding who will be in his cabinet as he prepares to take over from Keir Starmer as UK Prime Minister on Monday. There's been widespread speculation about Mr Burnham's appointments, with Ed Miliband and Shabana Mahmood thought to be in the running to replace Rachel Reeves as Chancellor. Our political correspondent Jack Fenwick reports.
It's a job he's been after for more than 15 years. Now Andy Burnham has a little over 48 hours to make his final preparations. He's expected to spend this weekend with his family, beginning the move into number 10, now that his predecessor Sir Keir Starmer has packed up and moved out. The formalities surrounding a changeover of power have become familiar in the UK in recent years. On Monday, this will be the scene of Sir Keir Starmer's final speech as Prime Minister and Andy Burnham's first. All eyes will then stay on the famous street to see which cabinet ministers-to-be appear. Yesterday, Mr Burnham reckoned the decisions on who to appoint were still being finalised.
It would be somewhat premature and would, I think, cause something of chaos if you start half a reshuffle before you're in position.
I guess there's a difference between announcing them and waiting until Monday for that and knowing in your own mind.
Yeah, the decisions will be made very shortly and it will be done in the usual way.
Key Burnham allies such as the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, Labour's Deputy Leader Lucy Powell, the former Transport Secretary Louise Haigh and the Chief Whip Jonathan Reynolds are all tipped. Senior figures from Starmer's government, including the Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper and the Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden, will likely expect jobs too. And then there's the question of what to do with the former Health Secretary Wes Streeting and the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who at times were both talked up as potential leadership rivals, then in the end backed Burnham. But choosing his Chancellor will be the most important decision, with speculation among MPs rife that it could be the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood or the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband. Many on the left of the Labour Party have made it clear which choice they'd prefer.
I personally think that Shabana has got many skills. She has a background in the justice sector and she hasn't got the experience in the Treasury, and that's a department where you really do need to understand, and therefore just drawing on that vision about using people's experience, I think that other people can probably use their past experience in the Treasury. Ed Miliband clearly has walked those planks before, and therefore seeing him there I think is just a stronger choice.
Andy Burnham has expressed his frustration at speculation over his cabinet, but the personnel he chooses will matter when it comes to uniting a divided party, being able to convey a message and bringing forward policy to change people's lives. On that last point, those around the incoming PM have made it clear we can expect a flurry of announcements early on, as he hopes to hit the ground running.
Right, have I got you all?
Jack Fenwick, BBC News, Westminster.
Are we good?
Well, amidst that likely flurry of announcements, one of the things that BBC News has been told that Andy Burnham will announce is plans for renewed oil and gas drilling in the North Sea when he becomes Prime Minister on Monday. Would that break Labour's 2024 manifesto promise not to allow oil and gas exploration? I put that question to Dr Mark Ireland, a lecturer in energy geoscience at Newcastle University.
I guess firstly it should be clear that the two developments that are being talked about quite a lot at the moment, the Rosebank and Jackdaw, are not necessarily new exploration licenses. There are discovered resources and reserves there, which those companies want to bring onto production as soon as possible. So in that sense, not really. I think the issuing of new exploration licenses, that is in areas that currently there is no active drilling, would be a big shift by the incoming leader.
Yeah, and presumably would put him at odds with Ed Miliband, who has been the champion of net zero targets. So do you read into this, Mark, that potentially Miliband is out of the running for Chancellor?
I think there's an important distinction to make about the compatibility with oil and gas and net zero. It's not a black and white net zero requires no oil and gas. All the credible pathways to net zero require the UK and other countries around the world, they continue to use oil and gas during that transition. So I think the challenge that we've had is that the Labour government haven't really previously put forward a clear and credible pathway for how to manage our oil and gas demand in that transition period.
Right, that's an interesting point. I mean, it's also an area that Donald Trump has been very keen for the UK to explore. So if Burnham does go ahead with this, presumably would please the Trump administration and I suppose lead to criticisms from environmental groups that he's kind of caving into pressure from the White House.
I think what we need to have a much harder look at is I think any immediate announcements are unlikely to involve any significant changes to how the UK regulates and licenses and makes decisions about which developments might be compatible with those pathways. And so I think, it would kind of be at odds, but I think longer term they need to have a much clearer plan for, as we need oil and gas in that transition period, how will we evaluate in a fair and systematic way against our net zero obligations which developments could be compatible and also provide us that energy security that we so much hear about, particularly since over the past of the Ukraine conflict and now the conflict in the Middle East.
Dr. Mark Ireland there. Well, my colleague Clive Myrie will be live in Downing Street for a BBC News special, Andy Burnham, the new Prime Minister, on Monday morning starting at 10 a.m. You can watch around the world here on BBC News. And if you're in the UK, on BBC One and iPlayer. Plus, you can listen live on BBC Sounds.